What's going on, fantasy owners? Happy Nightmare Night to all of you out there, or as many of you might call it, Halloween, as I'm recording this. We are ready for the Week 9 preview of the Fantasy Football Stock Report. We're going to quickly dive right in and talk about the 5 guys that you want to ride this week. And before anybody asks, I'm sure I'm going to get bombarded with comments. You're probably wondering what I'm get up in. Well, I am Rainbow Dash from the My Little Pony series, and yes, before anyone asks, I'm a brony. Yeah, so deal with that and take that as you will. But beside the point, we're going to dive right in. We're going to ignore all that. Is what I want to be this year, so deal with it. So we're going to dive right in. Fantasy football for the Week 9. 5 guys this week that you want to have started in your fantasy football lineups for the week based on their strong performances last week, or guys that you just maybe are on the fence about starting, or guys just with real juicy matchups. These are guys you want. Also, don't forget to check out my fantasy notes, which I will link to on my Facebook page as soon as they are up, and also the 5 to avoid video. Okay, so quarterbacks right away. And again, being a Lions fan, I hate to kind of be slightly biased toward them this week, but I don't think you can really ignore this matchup this week with this. This is Matthew Stafford. I mean, even going up against Seattle this week, I might have had him on the avoid list because of the tough matchup with the Seahawks, but he completely went off against him and found a very reliable weapon, which we're also going to talk about on here as well. In fact, maybe even a couple of weapons. But he certainly put up great numbers. He was 34 of 49 for 352 yards, had 3 touchdowns, did throw a pick, but still 37 points in a CBS league. That's definitely very impressive. And again, the matchup this week, it's juicy. Going up against the Jaguars, very weak defense, just absolutely very, very strong all around. So I definitely think Stafford is a must-start guy. He probably was a must-start guy anyway, and you might not be able to afford him, sit him against Seattle. Normally we don't talk about guys that you really usually must start, but with this matchup against the Jaguars this week, I think it's safe to say with guys like this week, like Tom Brady on a bye, I think Smith is on a bye this week for San Francisco, so you definitely can plug Stafford definitely in your lineup as a must-start option this week. Other QBs I like, once again, include Josh Freeman going up against the Raiders. Granted, the Raiders' defense has improved at times this season, but Freeman's numbers have definitely looked strong the past few weeks. He's definitely a solid 1-2 option this week for you. Andrew Luck going up against the Dolphins. Obviously, the Dolphins boast the #1 run defense in the NFL. I think the Colts are going to have to throw to win this game, so I think Andrew Luck's going to put up some decent numbers for you. I think he's definitely #2 with some upside this week. Robert Griffin going up against the Panthers is definitely a nice #2 option for you this week as well. And on the other side of that Colts-Dolphins game, maybe if he gets the start, if Tannehill can't go, maybe you look at Matt Moore as a good #2, #3 option with some upside for you. He did very well in relief when starters at Miami were hurt last year. So maybe you look at Moore as a guy you can plug in maybe for a 1-week replacement for you for a bye-week guy, or if you're just desperate looking for a good quarterback option. Running backs. I'm going to mention his name again because he had his big breakout performance last week, and I might have said it on here, but I've liked this guy for weeks, not only because he's on my fantasy team, but just in general because of what he does in Tampa Bay. Doug Martin has just been an absolute beast this year for fantasy owners who decided to take a chance on him this year. I believe I drafted him to be my second back behind Adrian Peterson, and lucky for me, it certainly has paid off. And Martin has done nothing but be impressive. And last week was his coming out party. 29 carries for 135 yards and a touchdown. Plus, he had 3 catches for 79 yards and a score. So that just also shows you how versatile Martin is in the passing game, kind of like a Darren Sproles. This week going up against Oakland, again, the Raiders' D has improved, but I still think Martin, clearly no more LeGarrette Blount in his rearview mirror, not after last week's performance. He's now the trusted option at the goal line now. They did try pound him in a couple times last week at the goal line. Didn't get it done a couple times, but certainly a strong option. I think he's a definite number one, number two start this week going up against the Raiders. I really, really like Doug Martin going forward, and if you guys have had faith in him like I did, you're definitely reaping the rewards now from Martin's play. Other guys to like this week include, obviously you're probably must start this guy anyway when he's healthy, but Matt Forte of Chicago, he's got a juicy matchup this week going up against a Tennessee defense that has had trouble stopping teams this season. I definitely love his matchup. He's a must start. Speaking of Darren Sproles, I like him against the Eagles this week. Maybe as a sneaky number two starting option. He had 7 catches for 56 yards and a touchdown this week. He has been very involved in the passing game this season. So I definitely like him this week. Daniel Thomas going up against the Colts. Obviously Reggie Bush is usually the main guy, but I think whether it's Thomas, whether it's Bush, whether whoever gets the carries in Miami, I think you're definitely obviously starting them against the Colts this week because, as we know, the Colts' run defense not exactly impressive. So I think you can definitely go with him. And my wild card this week, and this is granted if he plays because we heard late that he suffered a quad injury against the Redskins, is Jonathan Dwyer of the Steelers going up against the Giants. If he plays, I like him as a number 2 with upside going up against the Giants this week because now he is the main guy, but that's as long as Isaac Redman and Rashard Mendenhall remain out. There's a lot of speculation of whether or not the Mendenhall might play this week. So really, it is kind of a messy situation, and usually I tell you guys to avoid messy backfield situations like that. But if Dwyer does go, I like him for this matchup this week. Is a Giants D that can be, sometimes have its weak moments and not perform very well for you. So keep an eye on the Steelers backfield situation. Whoever plays, obviously if Mendenhall plays, you're starting Mendy every time. But if Dwyer is the one to go, I like him as a number 2. Wideouts. If you guys didn't make the jump to get this guy after Nate Burleson went down in Detroit again with the Lions here, but again, you missed the boat. You missed the boat on Titus Young. And earlier in the season, I've told you guys this story. I drafted him to be my number 3 receiver this year. He had 2 awful weeks the first week of the season, just completely disappeared from the fantasy radar. Well, now that Burleson is out for the year with that broken leg, now he gets his chance to step up. And last week, oh ho ho, he took full advantage of it. 22 points last week. And Ryan Broyles, the new rookie receiver, he's now kind of taking on that slot role, but he got a score too, so maybe he's kind of a deeper option going forward. But I think Young has definitely cemented himself as the Lions' number 2 receiving option. I think he's an easy number 2, number 3 start this week, going up against, again, that weak Jaguars D, that Jaguars secondary. I definitely think he's a strong play for you this week. I think you can definitely rely on him going forward. I mean, he's got a great quarterback throwing to him. I think the matchup's just going to get better. So, and Megatron's going to get double teamed sometimes. So against better secondary. So Young and Broyles are going to have the opportunities to break out. So definitely, if an owner lost confidence like I did, I was lucky to get him again. But if maybe someone else didn't have faith in Titus Young and he's out there in your league, get him now. Don't be late on that boat, because it's sailed and it's racking up points. So Titus Young, definite start this week. Other wide receivers I like this week, the Bronco combo, as I like to call them, Demaryius Thomas and Eric Decker. I like both this week going up against the Bengals. The Bengals have been known to be thrown on this year. I mean, Brandon Whedon looked good against the Bengals this season. So they can certainly be thrown on. And Peyton Manning, we know, is putting up fantasy stats like crazy in Denver. I can treat both of those guys as number 2 receivers this week. I've said in the past that you really don't know which one of them is going to go off, but it looks like both had double-digit points last week. So it looks like either with the right matchups or just if Manning has time to throw, then he can hook up with both of these guys. So I like them both this week as number 2 receivers for this Bengals matchup. I'm going to say the name again, Denarius Moore. I told you guys he's going to be the better Oakland receiver, and that the pace he's on, he's going to become a stud this season if he isn't already. 15 fantasy points. He's definitely a sneaky number 2 going forward, especially going up against a Tampa Bay team that, if you recall, early in the season got shredded by Eli Manning. So they can definitely be thrown on, and he's clearly Carson Palmer's number 1 weapon in Oakland. Mike Williams at Tampa Bay. Obviously, we know that B-Jack is the big option there, but again, he's going up, against again the Raiders. He's been a touchdown machine lately. He has been scoring a lot of touchdowns, especially kind of like a Josh Gordon on deeper plays, but he finds a way, and that's what we want in fantasy is those points to be scored. So I think he's definitely a sneaky number 3 play this week. And how about this? This is kind of a deep desperation, but if you're really looking, if you need wide receiver depth, maybe you take a look-see at Cecil Shorts in Jacksonville. I never thought I'd list a Jaguar on my ride list, but I have to say I've bought into the hype a bit. Blaine Gabbert really hasn't had anyone else to really throw to this year. Justin Blackman hasn't panned out, and Jones Drew now is out, and so really, who's he going to throw to? Well, he's definitely emerged as the main threat, and I think for the matchup with the Lions this week, he's a decent number 3. I think Jacksonville is going to have to throw in this game, obviously, because Detroit's run D is pretty strong. So that's why I don't like, and I'll mention him, I don't like Rashad Jennings this week. He is on the he is on the avoid list. So I like Cecil Shorts this week. If you're looking for wide receiver help, maybe a number 3 play this week against the Lions. Finally, real quickly, some tight ends for you to think about. The Cowboys back, Jason Witten. He is definitely a solid number 1 play again. He had 16 fantasy points last week, showing no ill effects of the spleen injury that plagued him earlier in the year. Granted, the Cowboys are going up against the Falcons this week, the only unbeaten team in the NFL, but I still think he's a solid play for you. The guy you can also rely on that's back and the guy you want to ride again going forward now that he's healthy is Jimmy Graham. He found the end zone again last week, 12 fantasy points. This week going up against the Eagles. He should definitely get looks this week because obviously the Eagles secondary, we know how talented they are. They're probably another spoiler. I think they're going to double team Marcus Colston, although Colston, you don't know what he's going to be capable of. So I think they're going to focus mainly on him. So Graham will get his look, especially if the Saints are in the red zone. Who does Drew Brees always look for? Jimmy Graham. It's not a hard question, folks. So I definitely think he's a reliable option there for you there. Heath Miller, I know I've had him on both lists multiple times this year, but he had double-digit fantasy points again last week. I don't think you can really, and I'm going to say it on here, apparently he gets looks, and I don't know if you can really doubt him again. I think he's I think he's definitely a solid number 2 to be safe, but if your top tight end is on a bye or not panning out for you, maybe you can sneak Miller in as a decent option for you this week. Going up against that Giants team, a lot of issues there. And finally, one sneaky play, Brandon Pettigrew with the Lions. Again, I know the whole Lions thing, but again, the matchup against the Jaguars, it's too juicy. I think he could definitely sneak a touchdown this week, and I think I like him as a number 2, number 3 play this week, just based on the matchup. But the problem is he's so inconsistent, you don't know what to expect from Brandon Pettigrew. All right, guys, these are the 5 guys that I like this week and more plus more. Again, you can check out my detailed notes for all these players on my Facebook link, and don't forget to check out the 5 to avoid video as well. Good luck in week 9. I'm doing very well myself now on a 3-game winning streak, so hopefully you guys are doing just as well, if not better. If not, we're going to try to help. This is what we're here for, try to help you guys out, get through on the winning track. Again, good luck this week, and take care, and again, happy Nightmare Night. Thanks, guys.